So you have this Lakers situation. There was a story today in The Athletic that Frank Vogel was on the verge of getting fired after that blowout loss the other night. Then the Lakers came back. They beat the Jazz last night. A really weird game where Stanley Johnson became the best player in the game. And I was watching it, not understanding it. Utah, a lot of Utah awards popped up, which we can talk about later. But Vogel, everybody's been saying this for 2 months. Vogel's going to become the fall guy for this. I'm not positive he cares. He got an extension. He won a title. And it's ridiculous to blame him. But you think, like, is it Vogel's fault they traded all of their depth for Russell Westbrook? Is it Vogel's fault they re-signed Taylor Horton-Tucker and let Caruso go? Is it Vogel's fault that they thought DeAndre Jordan and Trevor Ariza could still play basketball when we have 3 years of evidence now that they can't? Was it Vogel's fault that they drifted towards shooting and ignored all the Raja Bell types that actually help teams win titles? Like, I just don't know how this is the coach's fault, but this is how professional basketball goes.
It's exactly how it goes. And I'm with you in the camp of not so sure Frank Vogel's going to care. Like, at this point, it's another situation that I'm not envious of the coach to have to be in. It's just, it is a mess. And I would ask the question, like, if you were going to fire him after the loss, what, because you won the game, that changed? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? I don't understand. Like, go ahead and hang it around his neck and let's be done with it and let's move on. No, it's not his fault. Like, he didn't have anything to do with that. I would be interested to know, again, huge LeBron fan, but I was in a front office in Cleveland with LeBron on the team. And I want to be clear. LeBron never comes, hey, I want you sign this guy right now. Like, that's not the way that works, right? But there is some sort of dialogue between, your best player and the franchise and the GM as it pertains to talent that he thinks might work with him. That's just a prudent thing to do. Like, you're going to go in and be like, hey, man, you think you can rock with Bill? Like, this Bill? Yeah, man, Bill's going to be great. Boom.
I can hit 18-footers. I think I would be able to fit in. Go ahead.
Right. I want to know how much it was a collaborative effort. How much of it was a collaborative effort between, the front office and LeBron, because I do know he favors certain dudes. And I know this as a fact. When you are an aging player, and LeBron is that, like, you see players from your prime in a light that they're not in all the time anymore. Right? Like, because it's just, you're looking at it through your prism, right? I'm still that guy. And so X, Y, and Z was my nemesis 7 years ago. He's still the guy. And it doesn't work like that. And so that's interesting to me.
We used to talk about this with Doc Rivers. When he took over the Clippers, they would keep gravitating to these guys that always played well against the Celtics when he was there, the Clippers. So the best one was when they signed Byron Mullins to some contract because he'd had this one awesome game against Doc. And he was like, oh, we got Byron Mullins. It's like that he had the game of his life against your team. But he would do that over and over again. With LeBron, that's a great point with Westbrook. He's judging him from 4 years ago, Westbrook. LeBron's not on League Pass watching all the Wizards games last year. He also clearly drove that signing. Like, there's no two ways about it, because the stories that came out after were, I invited Russ over, we had wine, we talked about what it would look like. I think they really thought, like, we'll make this work. You put 3 great basketball players on one team, they'll figure it out. And I was borderline apoplectic, and I can't stand the Lakers. So on one hand, I was delighted that they made that trade, because you knew it was like such a low upside, high downside. But I was more just stunned as in 2021 that somebody could make a mistake like that. That was a mistake that's like out of the 1980s, when they would just go get random dudes and throw them together and be like, oh, I guess that's not going to work. This is like, we had mountains of evidence that Westbrook can't play off the ball and that LeBron has to have the ball all the time. So what are we doing?
No, I hear you. And having said I hear you, I thought it might work. I've said it. I thought it might work. And here's, I knew that. I did. I know Russ has to have the ball. LeBron has to have the ball. Somewhere deep down inside of me, I wanted to think that the two of them at this point, knowing it was probably the last go around, were going to be able to figure that out. And what I thought with two aging stars, right? Like both on the back side of it. What I thought could float them was the one star that wasn't in the same class as them in terms of, age and point in career, which was AD's kind of young vibrance, both of you take a little bit off your plate, let him go to work, and then become, and none of that's come to fruition. So I'm kicking myself in the ass because I should have known, but I was so hard headed, and I just thought, hey, maybe they'll work it out.
Russillo and I went all in on this will not work out, and I've watched way more of the Lakers than I want to admit.
Yeah,
either it's a beautiful train wreck, or they'll have moments like last night where it kind of clicks a little bit. Westbrook has a dunk over Gobert. Westbrook has the game-clinching three-point play, and Stanley Johnson comes in. He's doing stuff, and now it's like, all right, this is like now Davis comes back, but defensively, it's just never going to happen because it's too hard for them to sustain even like a C-plus defensive effort. So if shots aren't going in for even a quarter, they completely fall apart. And LeBron at this point in his career, like it's a little like Brady had this issue in the Patriots where not only is he incredibly famous and not only does he have the ball a lot, but he's also playing in some cases with people who are like 13, 15, 16 years younger than him, who grew up watching him and maybe idolizing him. And it's hard to play with your idols. Kobe had the same thing. Jordan had the same thing when he was on the Wizards. You're not really a teammate at that point. You're kind of levitating above everybody. Davis, he's fine with because, they same agency and, he's a little older. But for the most part, you're relying on some of these young kids who grew up watching LeBron. And now it's like, hey, here's a huge pressure situation. You've got to make these fourth quarter shots. I don't know. It's a mess. And I don't know how you fix it because the worst thing about the Westbrook trade for them, and I keep making this point, is it removed all their flexibility. If it doesn't work, you have no plan B. And that's why I hated the trade. I didn't hate the chance that they took as much as the fact that because of his contract, there was no way out. You do this and it doesn't work, you have no outs. And LeBron, he's got under contract this year, he's under contract next year. Same for Westbrook. Westbrook might be a little more tradable next year because he's an expiring. Still going to be tough. He's like going to be at like $47 million. And when you have no outs at the age LeBron is at, the ship has probably sailed. So they're going to need Davis to come back, and they'll need Davis to be the best big guy in the West other than Jokic is really their only path for this working out.
That's it. I mean, that's the only, and I don't, it's just hard for me to say but I'm going to say it. Like the style that LeBron plays, was a championship bringer. The bubble was weird for me, Bill. Like the bubble year, they won the chip, but I mean, so much going on that year. Like I don't know that if that had been a regular season and you had to play that out, I don't know that they were going to be my favorite to win a chip. Like I'm glad they did. I was pulling for them, but the style LeBron plays, the league has transitioned to a lot of people getting a lot of touches, a lot of playmakers out in space and pace. Well, when you play with LeBron, it's all the antithesis of that, right? Like it's a lot of people kind of standing around. LeBron's got the ball, and we don't really want to run. Like we don't want to get up and down as much, And so I think it becomes harder and harder, not only because they're like it's this generational gap, and some of these guys might be your have idolized you, but I think stylistically, not a lot of people play that style anymore, And so you get all these pieces, whether they're great pieces or not, but you're not even getting the best out of them because of the style that you play. And if you're going to do it, then you've got to be LeBron from 3-4 years ago. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you got, and AD, not just Bron, because I think what he's doing is amazing, but AD's got to be the dude you're talking about. Like, Russ, you got to cut the shit with all the turnovers, and you have to be the Russ, at least in the limited amount of touches you're going to get, you've got to be that Russ from 3 or 4 years ago. And if you're not going to all be those people because our ball's not moving and we're slow and all of that, and we don't defend, then you're a 7 or 8 seed, man. Like you ain't winning nothing.
There was a really fascinating moment yesterday in the Utah game. Like 4 minutes left, Westbrook wasn't back in. and Russillo and I were tight. They finally put him back in with like 3:14 left because they were playing better when he wasn't out there for a variety of reasons. Mostly because they usually play better when he's not out there. And Russillo's like, Vogel had to put Russ back in. Like, because it was in play for, he just was going to get benched for the whole fourth quarter, which if you're Vogel and you feel like the heat is on, that's the last thing, right? Be like, fuck it. Russ, you're out. I got to go with the 5 guys that have a chance to win. You said something interesting about the stylistic stuff with LeBron, because I've talked about this before. And of course, people get mad because God forbid it sounds like a critique. It's not. Some guys are just harder to play with than other guys, you know? And I think about this a lot with the Celtics. Tatum and Jalen, with the way their offense has kind of devolved, are really hard to play with. They're one-on-one guys. They don't have a point guard. And over and over again, you have these young guys that play with them that are forced to basically stand in the corner. They're not enabled in any way. And, you know, you said you've been watching a lot of Memphis. The thing that jumps out at me with Memphis is how non-ball dominant Ja is. They really, really, really go out of their way to enable all these other people. And Bane gets possessions and Brooks gets possessions. And they'll run stuff through Kyle Anderson. And they're just, the ball's moving and nobody has it for too long. And Ja will happily go to the corner or it'll seem like he's going to the corner. Then all of a sudden they're setting him a sneaky pick. He's coming around. But it's inclusive. And that's why it's like, well, why has Bane developed like he has? Well, because they wanted him to develop. Whereas I look at a guy like Nesmith, who I really liked on the Celtics, who I thought was coming on last year. And now he took a corner three yesterday that hit the side of the backboard. And he's borderline unplayable. And it's because he's just told to run to the corner. He's not enabled at all. So going back to the LeBron thing, like, I think we've seen a 12-year sample size of this now, where other than Kyrie and other than Davis, I think he has been a little hard to play with. Like Kevin Love definitely goes to Cleveland and his career's really not the same for about 4 years there. But somebody like Malik Monk, who was hot for 5 games and now all of a sudden he's not playing crunch time again. But how do you get in a groove when you don't have the ball a lot? And also, how do you go to other people when you have LeBron James on the court? It's like this chicken and egg thing. So we're going to tell LeBron to stand in the corner? That doesn't make sense either.
Absolutely. No,
it's hard to develop people. And I think Kuzma is a good example of this. Kuzma has been the best guy in the Wizards now for a month. And with somebody that you would watch in Laker games, you'd be like, is this guy even an NBA rotation guy? I don't know.
Yeah, you need opportunity to develop, right? You need opportunity. And it's I'm not judging. It's a very difficult thing. I've said this about me before. Like, you know, when I was in Utah before I went to Phoenix, our offense was kind of wide open. Now we ran Jerry's style, but within that style, you know, I posted up a little bit. I had the ball in my hand on the wings. I came off a pick and roll and I was learning how to play pick and roll. I wasn't great at it, but I was learning, right? No one had ever given me the ball before in the NBA, so I didn't know shit. Yeah. I was running around just defending and running wild, but I was starting to understand how to score. Like, oh, you know, I get in this situation, I get a switch, just be patient. I'm going to be good. I got something on me that I can cook. Like, I was starting to learn. And then I went to Phoenix and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Those were the best years of my life, the best teams I ever played on, but my game stayed right there.
Stagnated.
It just stopped. I became a run to the corner shooter. That's what I was going to be. It was probably the best thing because I don't know that I was good enough to play the role of anything better than that on an NBA level. But the point is, I have experience with that, right? Like your job, like get it to Steve. He's going to run pick and roll and you guys are going to shoot when that pick and roll doesn't work. And so I was like, you know, I was getting paid well and we wanted to win. And so then you dig into that role and be the best you can. But as you're trying to develop talent, like I was older, but as you're trying to develop young talent that can kind of help a LeBron or someone like that, man, there's got to be opportunity, right? You got to get off the ball a little bit to give them the breath to kind of to grow. Not that LeBron doesn't, but the style that he plays, it's not enough for everyone out there to really kind of dig into who they are as a player.
Well, and there's also certain guys that it makes sense for them to be on a team like that. Like the Celtics have Grant Williams, who I had given up on last year, but I think has emerged as a rotation asset this year. And the reason is he just became really good at corner threes because he's too small to post up. He's a good rebounder. But ultimately you're not going to run plays for him. So if he can't learn to shoot from the corner, there's no reason to have him.
Right.
but he learned how to shoot. Now he's one of the best corner three guys. So it's like, he makes sense. But when I look at some of the perimeter guys in the league, or even some of the point guards, like after watching Dennis Schroeder for half of a Celtics season, I can't believe he played with LeBron. It's such a bad combo. Like Schroeder's like, the defenses just sag off him completely. And I can understand why the Lakers were anxious to get rid of him. But I look at a guy like Kuzma as a really good example of sometimes it's not awesome to play with an incredible player. Because Kuzma has blossomed in a way that if I was a Laker fan, I would be losing my mind. That even just Kuzma for Westbrook is a terrible trade. Kuzma at $16 million for Westbrook for $44. That alone is a horrible trade. Not to mention you gave two other guys in it.